Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Petty. I thought I'd take a second to create this video for you as we are in our U.S. Constitution unit. It's been my experience that checks and balances has been a concept that's really tripped people up. So I just want to make sure we're all good on this subject. So, checks and balances. One of my favorite Federalist papers is the Federalist 51. If you guys have read the Federalist papers, you know exactly how awesome they are. And if you haven't, you should read them because they're awesome. Anyway, it's either James Madison or Alexander Hamilton that wrote the Federalist 51. And here's what they tell us. To what expedient, then, shall we finally resort for maintaining in practice the necessary partition of power among the several departments as laid down in the Constitution? The only answer that can be given is that all of these exterior provisions are found to be inadequate. The defect must be supplied by so contriving the interior structure of the government as that its several constituent parts may, by their mutual relations, be the means of keeping each other in their proper places. That is late 1700s talk for we need checks and balances, because if we don't have checks and balances, there's nothing that's going to be able to ensure that each branch is doing what they're supposed to be doing, okay? So, getting our branches of government nailed down really quickly. The legislative branch, of course, it includes Congress. Congress is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and their main job is creating legislation or making laws. So the legislative branch was actually intended to be the more powerful branch of government, because especially the House of Representatives was initially the most direct representation of the people, okay? Because that originally was the only part of government that the people actually directly elected, okay? It wasn't until years later with the 17th Amendment that the people started to directly elect the senators, okay? So some examples of things that Congress can do. They can override a president's veto. It requires quite a bit, but if Congress can get together and override a president's veto, then the bill that the president vetoes becomes law without his signature. Congress, specifically the Senate, is responsible for approving treaties and nominations. So if you've been paying attention to the news lately, you've no doubt heard about President Trump's nominees for his cabinet. In order for those people to serve in his cabinet, they first have to be approved by the Senate because of checks and balances. In addition to approving all of those fun things, the House of Representatives is responsible for impeaching officials. Could be president, could be member of the Supreme Court, could be member of the federal court or a member of Congress. But the House of Representatives is responsible for impeachment. And then the Senate is actually responsible for removing those officials from office. And we'll talk a little more about that when we get to our Congress unit. And Congress is also responsible for creating lower federal courts. Okay, now you would think courts, the Supreme Court would be responsible for doing that. No. This creating lower federal courts, giving that power to Congress, is just another way to ensure that one group doesn't get too much power. Okay, so moving on to the executive branch. We all know the executive branch includes the president, vice president, and the cabinet. Their main job is executing and enforcing laws. And some examples of things that they can do would be vetoing bills. They can appoint federal officials, so they can appoint members to their cabinet. They can appoint members to the Supreme Court, like President Trump has done recently. They can also call Congress into special sessions, and they can propose and support legislation. Now, they really can't officially propose legislation or propose laws, because that's something that only Congress can do. So then, moving on to the judicial branch, their job is, this includes the Supreme and federal courts. Their main job is to interpret and apply the law. And these people have a really super important check on the other two branches. They basically get to determine whether or not what Congress and the president are doing is constitutional, and that's called judicial review. Super, super, super powerful. All right, so check yourself. Think about this. And this is not a requirement. This is just to make sure that you've kind of got everything together here. So an act of Congress has just been declared unconstitutional. Who is checking who is being checked? A president has just been impeached, who is checking who is being checked, and a lower federal court has just been established, who is checking and who is being checked. Okay, so go back through this presentation. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email or send me a remind message. See ya.